My daughter erased me for 12 years. 12 Christmas mornings. 12 Father's Days. And the last 7 months of her mother's bone cancer in a hospice outside Fresno. Not one phone call. Not one card. Then I sold the electrical company I had built out of a rented storage unit for $8. 7 million. Bought a 4-bedroom brick house on a bluff near St. Charles, Missouri, with the Missouri River bending behind it. And 13 days after I moved in, my daughter arrived in a rented black Escalade with her husband and a 16-year-old boy I had never been allowed to meet. She stepped onto my porch with dry eyes and a trembling voice and said, "Dad, we're here now. We're going to take care of you." What I did over the next 9 days saved that boy's life and cost my daughter the last lie she had left. If you have ever had family disappear when you were hurting and reappear when they smelled money, hit the like button and tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. Subscribe to Silent Family Revenge. A subscribe may feel like nothing to you, but it helps stories like mine find the people who need them. My name is Silas Mercer. I am 69 years old, and this is my story. I was in the kitchen trying to figure out the fancy coffee machine the realtor's son had convinced me to buy when the doorbell started ringing like someone was leaning on it with both hands. I had only been in that house 13 days. Most of my boxes were still taped shut. The dining room had one folding chair in it. My bedroom smelled like fresh paint and cedar closet liners. For the first time since 1979, nobody was waiting for me to fix a breaker, sign a payroll sheet, or calm down a customer who had lost power in August. The bell rang again before I crossed the foyer. Then came 3 hard knocks. I opened the door, and there stood my daughter, Maureen. She was 42 now. Her hair was darker than I remembered, cut sharp at her jaw, and she wore a camel coat with gold buttons, even though it was warm enough outside for shirt sleeves. Behind her stood her husband, Caleb Rowe, a man I had met exactly twice and trusted exactly never. He had soft banker hands, a smile too white to be honest, and a suitcase at each foot like he had already won permission to stay. Behind them, half hidden behind a duffel bag and a rolled sleeping bag, stood a boy, tall, thin, hood up, headphones around his neck, eyes on the porch boards. He looked like he was trying to take up less space than his own shadow. Marin took 1 step forward. Her mouth trembled. "Dad." That one word hit me harder than I expected. The last time she called me Dad was in a steakhouse in Phoenix 12 years earlier. Her mother, Elisa, was still healthy then. Marin had flown in with Caleb because I had begged her to let us meet for dinner. I thought if I paid for the flights and the hotel and kept my mouth shut about Caleb's new watch, maybe we could start over. Instead, halfway through the meal, Marin stood up and said, loud enough for 3 tables to hear, "You are a small-town wire puller who thinks overtime is a personality. I don't want my son growing up thinking life smells like burnt dust and cheap tools." Then she walked out. Caleb followed her, smiling over his shoulder like a man leaving a tip in a church collection plate. I paid the bill. I sat in the car for 20 minutes before I could drive. And now she was on my porch, saying Dad like a weekend had passed. Caleb stepped forward first. "Silas, it's been too long. We should have done this years ago." He held out his hand. I looked at it. I did not take it. My eyes went to the boy. He looked up for half a second, and that half second told me more than any adult on that porch wanted me to know. There was fear in him, but not the sharp fear of a kid caught doing something wrong. It was older than that, trained. It was the fear of somebody who had learned to check a room for exits before he checked it for chairs. "Who's the boy?" I asked. Marin gave a little laugh that had no air in it. "Dad, don't be awful. That's Eli, your grandson." The boy's face did not change when she said grandson. He had not expected that word to protect him. "I wouldn't know," I said. "You made sure of that." Her mouth tightened. Then the performance came back. "We want to fix that. We want to fix everything." The drive was long. "Can we come inside?" Before I answered, Caleb bent down, picked up 2 suitcases, and started walking past me. I put one hand on the doorframe, set them down. He stopped. The smile stayed, but his eyes went flat. Marin touched my sleeve. "Dad, please. We've had such a hard year. Caleb's consulting work has been unstable, and Eli has been struggling in school. And when we heard about your health, we just knew God was telling us to come. My health, I said. She blinked. You know, your age. Being alone. Mom would not want you alone in this big house. That was the first time she had mentioned her mother in front of me since Elise died. Elise had spent her last months in a hospice room with a window facing a parking lot and a jacaranda tree. She asked for Marin every morning after breakfast until the morphine took that habit from her. She had recorded a message on my phone because she hoped her daughter might one day want to hear her voice. Marin never came. She did not come to the funeral. She did not send flowers. And now she was using Elise as a key. I opened the door wider. You have 30 minutes, I said, to tell me what you actually came for. Then you are getting back in that car. Marin swept into the foyer, like the house had been built from her Pinterest board. Caleb followed, pulling luggage. Eli came last, carrying the smallest bag and the most weight. The house was new to me, but already it had rules. No shoes on the white runner. No drinks on the old walnut side table. No touching the framed photograph of Elise in her blue church dress. Marin broke all 3 rules in less than 5 minutes. She walked straight to the back windows and stared out at the river. Oh, Dad, this is beautiful. There's room for everyone here. There is room, I said. That is not the same as permission. Caleb gave a soft chuckle. Still the same Silas. Eli sat on his duffel near the staircase. When he lowered himself, his sleeve slid back. There were finger-shaped bruises on his forearm. Yellow and purple. Not fresh. Not old. Managed. I saw them. Marin saw me see them. He wrestles. She said too fast. He's clumsy. 16-year-old boys are all elbows. Eli pulled his sleeve down without looking at her. That was why I did not throw them out. I would like to tell you I was wise and controlled from the beginning. I was not. I was angry enough to taste metal, but the boy on my stairs had Elise's eyes, and he was sitting in my house like someone waiting for punishment. I had failed to reach my daughter. I was not going to fail a child I had just met because my pride wanted a clean doorway. So I let them stay one night. 1. Marin took the guest room without asking. Caleb asked where the liquor was. Eli asked nothing. That evening, while Marin was upstairs opening drawers that were none of her business, I sat across from Caleb at the kitchen table and poured 2 cups of coffee. He declined his. Men like Caleb do not drink anything they cannot control. What brought you to Missouri? I asked. Family, he said immediately. Marin has carried so much regret. When she heard you were alone, it broke her. Who told her I was alone? He smiled. People hear things. What kind of consulting do you do? Capital strategy. That sounds like 2 words hiding a third one. His smile flickered. Private clients. Remote work. High trust. Where is your office? We keep things lean. How much do you owe? The silence after that was the first honest thing he gave me. He looked down at the table, then toward the window. I'm not sure what you mean. Yes, you are, I said. I spent 47 years bidding jobs. I know when a man is pretending a house fire is a candle. I am asking how hot the flames are and who is standing outside with a gasoline can. He stood up. I need some air. He went out onto the back deck and gripped the railing. I watched through the glass. He did not make a phone call. He did not smoke. He stared at the river until his shoulders started moving. At first I thought he was crying. Then I realized he was laughing. That was when I knew whatever had followed him to my house was bigger than embarrassment. That night, I lay awake in the master bedroom and listened. The house carried sounds strangely. Pipes clicked. The river wind pressed against the windows. Somewhere down the hall, Marin and Caleb argued in low voices. I could not hear every word, only the shape of it. Her hiss, his rumble, her hiss, a thump against a wall. Then a door opened. Bare feet crossed the hall. The bathroom fan came on. Eli got sick for nearly 10 minutes with the water running the whole time. At 4:18 inches the morning, I made a phone call to a man named Hank Sutterfield. Hank had been my first hire at Mercer Electrical, and my last goodbye when I sold it. He was 71, built like a fence post, and had never once in 39 years answered the phone with hello. He answered, "What broke? Maybe my family." I said. He was quiet. "I need a favor." I told him, "The kind you do not repeat." Hank said, "How many trucks?" "That is why I called you first." "What are we doing?" "Silas, we are going to make thieves believe the old man left the doors unlocked." He did not ask who. He did not ask why. He said, "I can be there by noon." The next morning, I came down in a robe and slippers I had bought for the performance and never worn. I let my hand tremble when I lifted the coffee pot. Not much, just enough to spill a crescent of coffee onto the counter. Marin was in my kitchen wearing my wife's yellow sweater. I stopped so hard. One slipper slid on the tile. That sweater had been in a cedar chest under tissue paper. Elise wore it on the trip we took to Santa Fe for our 30th anniversary. Marin had found it, unfolded it, and put it on as if grief were a costume. "Dad," she said brightly, "I made pancakes." Caleb sat at the table scrolling his phone. Eli sat at the far end, both hands around a glass of milk he had not touched. I looked at the sweater. I looked at my daughter. I said nothing. Marin noticed my shaking hand. Her eyes lit for a fraction of a second before she arranged her face into concern. "Daddy. Are you okay, Daddy?" "Not dead." Daddy was for leverage. I made the tremor worse. Doctor says it could be essential tremor. Could be something neurological. At my age, they all make the same face and order the same tests. "Oh, Dad." She came over and touched my shoulder. "You should have told me." "I almost did," I said, but I figured the phone worked both ways. She flinched. "Good." Then I gave them the bait. "Money has been tight anyway." I said, "The sale did not close the way people think. Lawyers are fighting over the final payment. New owners want concessions. I may have this house and about 36,000 in checking until they sort it out." Caleb's phone lowered. 36, he said. "Maybe 38, if a receivable clears." His face went pale around the mouth. Marin's hand tightened on my shoulder. I could feel calculation through her fingers, like cold water running under a door. "Dad," Caleb said, "soft now. You really need someone to look at your accounts." "I have an accountant." "Accountants count what happened. I protect what is left." Marin leaned in. "Caleb knows estate planning. Asset protection." "Dad, we did not come for money. We came because you should not be dealing with this alone." The way she said alone nearly made me laugh. But Eli was watching me. Not Caleb. Not his mother. Me. So I nodded like a frightened old man and said, "Maybe you can take a look after lunch." Bitten. Hank was in my garage pretending to deliver a table saw I had ordered. With him were two former employees, brothers named Luis and Marco Vega, who could install cameras in a church without the pastor noticing. I had already put visible security cameras outside when I moved in. What Hank's boys installed were not visible. One in my office pointed at the desk, one in the dining room tucked behind a smoke detector, one on the back porch, and one in the upstairs hallway outside the guest rooms. No bedrooms, no bathrooms, nothing private, but enough to catch doors, voices, and movement. I also called the lawyer who had handled my company sale. Her name was Ruth Bellman, and she was the kind of woman who could make a bank vice president apologize to a parking meter. Her office was in Clayton, just west of St. Prode. Louis. When I told her what had happened, she did not interrupt once. That worried me more than if she had yelled. When I finished, she said, "Silas, what you are describing is not reconciliation. It is elder financial abuse warming its hands over a family photograph." I figured, have they mentioned a trust? Not yet. They will. Or a power of attorney. Or a medical authorization. The order may vary, but the song is always the same. "There is a boy," I said. Her voice changed. "How old? 16. Bruises on his arm. Vomited last night so quietly it broke my heart." "Do you believe he is in immediate danger?" "I believe he has been in danger for years." Then we document fast. And we move carefully. In Missouri, anyone can report suspected child abuse to the state hotline. But if we call with only your word and no context, Caleb and Marin will control the first narrative. I want evidence. And I want it clean. How long? 4 days if you can hold them. Maybe 5. I can hold them. They think I am scared and broke. Good. But be careful with recordings. Missouri is friendly to one-party phone recordings, but private in-person recordings can be complicated depending on expectation of privacy and device setup. Keep yourself in the conversations you intend to use. Keep cameras in common areas. And let me steer the legal side. That was Ruth. She could turn panic into instructions. Before I left, she slid a card across her desk. Private investigator. Former county detective. He starts tonight. On the drive home, I thought about Elise. She had not been perfect. Neither had I. We worked too much. We let silence settle in corners of our family until it felt like furniture. But Elise loved Marin with a stubbornness that outlived pain. In hospice, when speech became hard, she would tap my wrist and point to my phone. She wanted me to call our daughter again. I did. Over and over. Voicemail. Blocked. Nothing. I had promised Elise I would keep trying. Now my daughter was in my house, wearing her sweater, lying through pancakes, and my grandson was afraid to drink milk at my table. I whispered to the windshield, I am sorry I am late, but I am here now. On day 3, Marin found the cabinet in the den where I kept Elise's things. I walked in and saw her holding Elise's old recipe box, the little metal one with peaches painted on the lid. Marin's thumb was rubbing the corner like she had a right to be tender. For a moment, I saw the girl she used to be, 12 years old, flour on her cheek, trying to bake a birthday cake before Elise came home from work. That girl had loved us. I know she had. It is important to say that, because monsters are easier to hate than broken people who still wear the face of your child. Mom kept the lemon pie card, Marin said. She kept everything. Marin's eyes filled. Real tears. I think. Then Caleb called from the kitchen, and the tears shut off like a faucet. That night at dinner, she made the move. She had cooked chicken and dumplings from Elise's recipe box. They were good. That made it worse. Daddy, she said, Caleb and I talked. With your tremor, and the company's sale being uncertain, and the house possibly exposed to creditors, we think you need protection. What kind? Caleb put his fork down. A family asset trust. Revocably. Very standard. You keep the benefit of everything. But Marin and I can act if you have a medical episode or if those buyers come after you. Act how pay bills. Protect the house. Move funds. Handle litigation. Only if necessary. And who writes this trust? A friend of mine, Caleb said. Attorney. He is driving in from Kansas City tomorrow. That is fast. When family needs help, you move fast. I looked at Marin. She reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Daddy, I know I hurt you, she said, but I have waited so long to be your daughter again. I wish I could tell you those words meant nothing. They meant too much. Every father has a foolish room inside him where his child is still 8 years old. Running toward him with a scraped knee, Marin had not just knocked on my front door. She had found that room, turned on the light, and stood in it with muddy shoes. I excused myself. I went out to the back deck and looked at the Missouri River in the dark until I could breathe without shaking. When I came back inside, Eli was alone at the sink washing plates. He had one earbud in. The other hung against his sweatshirt. You ever fish? I asked. He startled so hard the plate knocked the sink. Sorry, I said. I did not mean to scare you. He swallowed. No. Sir. River is right there. Be ashamed to insult it. I go down to the dock at 5:30. There is a second pole in the shed. You do not have to talk. You just have to hold the pole and pretend you know more than the fish. For the first time, the corner of his mouth moved. He did not say yes. He nodded once. At 5:30 the next morning, he was standing on the deck in the same gray hoodie, hands in the pocket, eyes on the boards. We walked down without speaking. The air smelled like mud and wet leaves. A towboat moved far downstream, slow as a thought. I baited both hooks. We sat on 2 folding chairs I had bought before I knew who I had bought them for. After 20 minutes, he said, Grandpa. It was the first time he had called me anything. Yes, son, Caleb isn't me dad. I know. My real dad was named Noah. He died when I was 5. Truck accident outside Bakersfield. He was a lineman. That hit me in the chest. A lineman. Eli nodded. Mom said you hated him. I never met him. He left me money. Not a lot, but enough for college. Caleb said he invested it. Then last year I heard him tell Mom it was gone. I kept my eyes on the river. Did Caleb put those bruises on your arm? Eli did not answer. The pole trembled in his hands. Son, I said, as gently as I could, I will not ask you twice if you cannot say it. He took one breath, then another. He grabs hard. Eli whispered. Sometimes he hits Mom. Sometimes me. It got worse when the money ran out. We left California because men came to the house. Caleb said they were clients. They were not clients. What did your mother tell you before you came here? She said you were rich and lonely and guilty. She said if I behaved, we could start over. She said you owed her. That one hurt. It was supposed to. I put my hand on the arm of his chair, not touching him. Listen to me. Eli, I am going to get you safe. But I need you to do one hard thing for maybe one more day. Act like nothing changed. Eat what you can. Stay close to me tomorrow night. Do not warn your mother. Do not argue with Caleb. Can you do that? What is tomorrow night? That is when a man who thinks he is stealing my house finds out he walked into it. Eli stared at me. Then he put his hand on top of mine for 1 second. A boy should not have to be brave with breakfast still ahead of him. After he went inside, I called Ruth from my truck. She already had the investigator's first report. Caleb Rowe, 46, former licensed financial advisor in California. License surrendered 3 years earlier after client complaints. 2 civil judgments. 1 sealed domestic violence complaint from a previous girlfriend. 1 active inquiry connected to an unregistered investment pool that had taken money from retirees in Sacramento and Palm Springs. His personal debt was estimated at $1. 3 millions. Most of it was tied to a Nevada lender named Victor Lenz, who owned pawn shops, shell companies, and, according to Ruth, men with neck tattoos who prefer conversations without witnesses. Then she told me about Eli's trust. Noah Pierce, Eli's biological father, had died in 2015. A wrongful death settlement and life insurance payout had created a trust for Eli's education. Caleb became co-trustee after he married Maren and adopted Eli on paper. Over the previous 18 months, the trust had been drained through 3 transfers, labeled educational support and family relocation. There was nothing left. He stole a dead man's gift to his child. I said, yes. Ruth said, I sat in my truck with both hands on the wheel and watched Eli through the kitchen window. He was feeding pancake pieces to my neighbor's old dog through the screen door. What now? I asked. Tomorrow morning. I file emergency guardianship and protective paperwork. I have already spoken with a retired family judge who owes me 2 favors and dislikes bullies. County deputies can be at your house tomorrow evening. A children's division worker can come too. But Silas, do not improvise. Ruth, I mean it. Men like Caleb become dangerous when the room stops obeying them. I will not touch him. I did not ask if you would touch him. I asked if you would improvise. I looked at the river. No. That afternoon, I let Caleb look at a fake folder of household bills Ruth had prepared. Not false bank documents. Nothing illegal. Just harmless paper that told the story I wanted him to believe. Insurance notices. A tax estimate. A letter about an unresolved sale disbursement. Enough fog for a desperate man. He performed concern beautifully. Silas, he said, sitting in my office. I do not want to alarm you, but you are exposed. I feel exposed. That house is your anchor. If you lose it, you have no leverage. The trust is the right move. Will Maren be okay if I do this? He leaned forward. Maren needs peace. You can give her that. There it was. Not love. Not safety. Peace. The word cowards use when they mean obedience. That night, the hallway camera caught what I needed. Marin stood outside the guest room whispering, "Caleb, slow down. If Dad thinks we're pushing, he'll call Ruth Bellman." Caleb said, "Then stop acting like a frightened kid and start acting like a daughter. Once he signs, we refinance the house, pay Lenz enough to breathe, and get him evaluated. Tremors, confusion, kavrif. It writes itself. I don't want him in a home. I don't care what you want. I care that Lenz found the rental agreement. Do you understand we have days?" And Eli shuts up. The sound after that was small. Not a slap. Worse, a shove into a wall with someone trying not to cry out. I saved the file. I copied it 3 times. 1 drive went in my safe. 1 went under the seat of my truck. 1 Hank drove to Ruth's office before dawn. Then I slept for 4 clean hours, which was 4 more than Caleb deserved. The crooked attorney arrived the next evening at 6:48 p.m. His name was Dwayne Kessler. He wore a navy suit that pulled across the stomach, carried a leather portfolio, and smelled like peppermint gum and fear. He introduced himself as Caleb's colleague, then corrected himself to family friend. His notary stamp was already in his bag. Marin had set the dining room like Thanksgiving. Candles, cloth napkins, Elise's silver. She had no right to that silver, but I let it sit there and shine. I came in slowly. Slippers, unshaved face, shoulders rounded, hands trembling just enough to make Dwayne glance at Caleb with relief. Eli sat at the far end of the table. I had told him to sit where he could see both doors. He gave me one tiny nod when I entered. Dwayne opened the folder and began to talk. I let him. He used words meant to tire an old man. Revocable, trustee, capacity, continuity, medical discretion, creditor shield, fiduciary efficiency. He explained how Marin and Caleb would never own anything outright. Not really. Not unless I was incapacitated, or unless assets needed to be moved for my protection. For my protection. Caleb nodded at the right times. Marin touched my forearm every few minutes. Eli stared at the candle flame until it leaned toward the air vent. After nearly 15 minutes, Dwayne slid the papers toward me. "Mr. Mercer," he said, "if you are comfortable, sign on the flagged pages. I can notarize tonight, and Caleb can begin helping you immediately." I picked up the pen. Marin breathed in. Caleb stopped blinking. I looked at the pen, then at my daughter. "Marin," I said, "did you ever wonder why I bought a 4-bedroom house?" She frowned. "What I am, one man. 69 years old. I sleep in 1 room. Eat at the kitchen counter. Why buy 4 bedrooms?" Caleb said. "Silas. Maybe we should stay focused." I sat up straight. For 4 days I had been bending my shoulders like an old extension cord. I am 6'2". When I unfolded myself, Dwayne's mouth opened a little. "I bought 4 bedrooms because when I sold Mercer Electrical, I hoped something foolish. I hoped my daughter might come home one day, and I wanted enough space for her, her husband, and the child she never let me meet." Marin's eyes filled. "Daddy." "No," I said. Not loud. Loud would have been easier for her. Quiet made her listen. "I bought this house with part of the $8, $7 million. That closed clean. There is no delayed payment. There is no lawsuit with the buyer. There is no creditor trying to take this place. My hand is not shaking because of a diagnosis. My hand is shaking because I have watched you wear your mother's clothes for 4 days while helping this man aim at my life's work." Caleb stood. "This is absurd." "Sit down," I said. He did not. The doorbell rang. I smiled at him. "That will help." 3 county deputies came through the front door. Hank and Luis came in through the mudroom with Ruth Bellman behind them, because Ruth liked entrances almost as much as she liked subpoenas. With her was a children's division worker named Mrs. Angela Park. Small, calm, and carrying a folder thick enough to ruin a weekend. Caleb stepped toward the kitchen. A deputy with a gray mustache moved 1 foot. That was all. Caleb stopped. Dwayne Kessler began talking very quickly. "I was asked to prepare standard estate documents. I was not informed of any family conflict." Ruth looked at him over her glasses. "Dwayne, If you keep speaking, I will start enjoying myself. He closed his mouth. Marin was staring at me. Dad, what did you do? I found out what you brought into my house. Caleb pointed at me. He is unstable. He has been confused all week. He invited us here. Ruth held up a flash drive. We have video and audio from common areas, financial records from California, witness statements, and enough probable cause to make your evening deeply inconvenient. I looked at Caleb. I know about Victor Lenz. I know about the $1. 3 millions. I know about the investment pool. I know about the trust Noah left for Eli. I know you emptied it. I know you planned to refinance my home and put me in a facility after you got control. His face changed then. Not anger first. Fear first. Real fear. That told me Victor Lenz was not a rumor. Eli made a sound from the end of the table. A small breath, like someone opening a locked room. Marin turned on Caleb. You said the trust money was safe. Caleb laughed once. Do not start. The deputy with the mustache said, Sir. Hands where I can see them. Caleb looked at Eli. You little liar. I moved before I thought. Not toward Caleb. Toward Eli. I stood between them. Look at me. I told Caleb. Not him. For 1 second. I saw the man he wanted to be. The man who could make smaller people flinch and call it order. Then the deputies took his wrists. He fought just enough to make it ugly, and not enough to win. Men like Caleb always know the line between violence and consequences. The difference that night was somebody else was holding the line. Marin started crying for real. Not pretty. Not strategic. The kind of crying that folds a person in half. Dad, she said, please. If he gets out, he'll kill me. I looked at my daughter, and I saw 2 people at once. The woman who skipped her mother's funeral. The girl who burned pancakes on Mother's Day and cried because she wanted everything perfect. Both were true. That is the cruelty of family. Truth does not replace truth. It piles up. I cannot be your father tonight. I said, I am too angry, but I can be your mother's husband for 1 minute. Because Elise would want me to keep you alive if I could. She covered her mouth. Mrs. Park has arranged a safe placement, and advocates who deal with domestic violence. You will go with her tonight. You will not leave with Caleb. You will not take Eli. You will not ask me for money. You will get legal help, treatment, counseling, whatever they tell you. And if you stay away from him and stay honest for 1 full year, we can talk about what comes next. What about Eli? Eli stays here while the court decides properly. Her face twisted. He is my son. Yes, I said, and that is why this hurts. Caleb was taken out at 8:26 p.m. He called me a name I will not repeat because Eli was there, and because some words deserve to die in the mouth of the man who said them. Dwayne Kessler left with Ruth's promise that the state bar would learn his middle name by morning. Marin left 2 hours later in a county vehicle. Before she went, she asked Eli if she could hug him. He looked at me. I said, your choice. He let her hug him. His arms stayed at his sides for a long time. Then one hand touched her back. Just one. That small mercy broke her worse than any accusation. When the last set of headlights disappeared down my driveway, the house became quiet in a way I had never heard before. Eli sat on the living room floor with his back against the couch. Knees up, hood down. For the first time, I could see how young he was. I lowered myself beside him. My knees cracked like old lumber. He almost smiled. You hungry? I asked. He shook his head. His stomach growled. I stood up. That was a legal objection. Overruled. I made grilled cheese sandwiches the way Elise made them when Marin was little. White bread. Too much butter. American cheese. Low heat. Patience. I made tomato soup from a can because grief does not require fresh basil. We ate on the floor. After a while, Eli said, what happens to me now? Now you sleep in the blue room. Tomorrow we buy you toothbrushes, socks, and anything else. A boy should not have to pack in a hurry. Monday we talk to the school. You see a counselor. You fish if you want. You do not fish if you do not want. You help me unpack the workshop if you feel like it. What if the court says I can't stay? Then I fight in court. Properly. With Ruth. Not with my fists and not with lies. He nodded. Did you really buy this house because of Mom? I bought it because hope makes old men stupid. Is that bad? No, I said. But hope without boundaries is how people steal your furniture while you thank them for visiting. He looked down at his sandwich. Do I get a key? I had not expected the question. I got up, went to the junk drawer, and took out the spare key with the green plastic cap. I put it on the floor between us. That key opens the front door. It does not buy love. It does not erase pain. It means if you come home, you can get inside. He stared at it for a long time. Then he picked it up and closed his hand around it. That was 9 months ago. Eli is a junior now at the high school in St. Point, Charles County. He is still quiet, but not the kind of quiet that hides bruises. It is the kind of quiet that listens before it speaks. He sees a counselor twice a week. He eats like the refrigerator personally insulted him. Hank comes by on Saturdays, and the two of them are rebuilding an old aluminum fishing boat in my garage. Eli has good hands. Careful hands. Lineman hands. Maybe. I do not push. Caleb pleaded guilty in California to financial crimes connected to the investment pool. Missouri charges related to Eli, and the attempted document scheme are still moving. And Ruth says not to say more than that. Victor Lenz has not appeared at my gate, which is good for Victor Lenz, because Hank now drinks coffee on my back deck every Thursday morning and says he likes the view. Marin is in a residential program in Kansas City. She writes Eli every Sunday. He reads the letters. He keeps them in a shoebox under his bed. He has not written back. I do not ask him to. She writes me too. I read those letters slower. The 1-year mark is still ahead of us. I told her what I meant, and I meant what I said. A phone number is not a key. A conversation is not forgiveness. Sobriety from a man like Caleb means more than not sleeping beside him. It means not reaching for his lies when the truth gets cold. People ask me if I regret not shutting the door that first day. No, I regret not finding Eli sooner. I regret letting pride sit on my chest for 12 years while my grandson learned to make himself invisible in another state. I regret that Elise never saw his face. Those regrets will follow me all the way to the ground. But I do not regret opening the door. You cannot always tell the difference between a trap and a rescue. At the moment it arrives, sometimes they come in the same car. People also ask if I forgive my daughter. Here is the truth. I do not know yet. Forgiveness is not a switch you flip because somebody cries in a county vehicle. Forgiveness is work. Repentance is work too. Marin has work to do that I cannot do for her. I can leave a porch light on at the edge of her life. I cannot carry her across the threshold. Eli has a key because Eli did not come to take. He came because he was brought. He came scared, hungry, and trained to apologize for breathing. A child like that does not need a lecture about family loyalty. He needs a bed that stays in the same place, and an adult whose mood does not decide whether dinner is safe. I have learned 3 things from those 9 days. First, greed rarely kicks the door down. It knocks softly and calls you daddy. Second, anger feels powerful, but patience wins. Wars, anger cannot survive. I wanted to put Caleb through a wall. Instead, I called a lawyer, made copies, and waited, because a boy needed a grandfather more than he needed a headline. Third, blood is only the beginning of family. Choice is the rest. I chose wrong for years when I chose pride over pursuit. I am choosing better now. 1 breakfast, 1 fishing trip, 1 court date at a time. Last week, Eli came downstairs wearing the green key on a leather cord. Hank helped him make. He did not say anything. He just stood in the kitchen until I noticed it. I see it. I told him. He nodded and poured cereal like that was all he needed. If you made it this far, hit the like button for me and subscribe to Silent Family Revenge. Tell me in the comments what you would have done. Would you have let them in? Would you have called the sheriff sooner? Would you give Marin a chance after 1 clean year? Or would that door stay closed forever? I read every comment. Take care of the people who choose you. Blood is the easy part. Staying honest is the hard part. And if someone you love is still out there in the dark, do not let pride become the locked door they cannot get through. Call once more. Write once more. Leave the porch light on, but keep the key in your own pocket until they have earned it.